Checking, checking, checking. I hope it does. I have no clue.
Wait, how do you? Wait, let me just see how it's on.
You just put it anyway.
Just clip it like that.
Yeah, that should work.
Alright.
Most likely.
I'll just read it on my phone. I got it on my phone.
All right.
What chapter is it?
It's going to be Daniel chapter 6, verse 1.
What verses?
Just the entire chapter.
Okay.
All of chapter 6.
Daniel in the den of lions. It pleased Darius to appoint 120 satraps to rule throughout the kingdom, with 3 administrators over them, one of them whom was Daniel. The satraps were made accountable to them so that the king might not suffer loss. Now Daniel so what does that say? Distinguished himself among the administrators and the satraps by his exceptional qualities that the king planned to set him over the whole kingdom. At this, the administrators and the satraps tried to find grounds for charges against Daniel in his conduct of government affairs, but they were unable to do so. They could find no corruption in him because he was trustworthy and neither corrupt nor negligent. Finally, these men said, "We will never find any basis for charges against this man Daniel unless it has something to do with the law of his God." So these administrators and satraps went as a group to the king and said, "May King Darius live forever." The royal administrators, prefects, satraps, advisors, and governors have all agreed that the king should issue an edict. What does it say?
Where's it at?
Edict. And enforce the decree that anyone who prays to any god or human being during the next 30 days, except to you, your majesty, shall be thrown into the lion's den. Now, your majesty, issue the decree and put it in writing so that it cannot be altered, in accordance with the law of the Medes and Persians, which cannot be repealed. So King Darius put the decree in writing. Now, when Daniel learned that the decree had been published, he went home to his upstairs room, where the windows opened toward Jerusalem. 3 times a day he got down on his knees and prayed, giving thanks to his God, just as he had done before. Then these men went as a group and found Daniel praying and asking God for help. So they went to the king and spoke to him about his royal decree. "Did you not publish a decree that during the next 30 days, anyone who prays to any god or human being except you, your majesty, would be thrown into the lion's den?" The king answered, "The decree stands in accordance with the law of the Medes and Persians, which cannot be repealed." Then they said to the king, "Daniel, who is one of the exiles from Judah, pays no attention to you, your majesty, or to the decree you put in writing. He still prays 3 times a day." When the king heard this, he was greatly distressed. He was determined to rescue Daniel and made every effort until shut down to save him. Then the men, as a group, to King Darius and said to him, "Remember, your majesty, that according to the law of the Medes and Persians, no decree or edict that the king issues can be changed." So the king gave the order, and they brought Daniel and threw him into the lion's den. The king said to Daniel, "May your God, whom you serve, continually rescue you." A stone was brought and placed over the mouth of the den, and the king sealed it with his own signet ring and with the rings of his nobles, so that Daniel's situation might not be changed. Then the king returned to his palace and spent the night without eating and without any entertainment being brought to him, and he could not sleep. At the first light of dawn, the king got up and hurried to the lion's den. When he came near the den, he called to Daniel in an anguished voice, Daniel, servant of the living God, has your God, whom you serve continually, been able to rescue you from the lion's den? Daniel answered, May the king live forever. My God sent his angel, and he shut the mouths of the lion. They have not hurt me because I was found innocent in his sight, nor have I ever done any wrong before you, your majesty. The king was overjoyed and gave orders to lift Daniel out of the den. And when Daniel was lifted from the den, no wound was found on him because he had trusted in his God. At the king's command, the men who had falsely accused Daniel were brought in and thrown into the lion's den, along with their wives and children, and before they reached the floor of the den, the lions overpowered them and crushed all their bones. Then King Darius wrote to all the nations and peoples of every language and all the earth, May you prosper greatly. I issue a decree that in every part of my kingdom people must fear and reverence the God of Daniel, for he is the living God and he endures forever. His kingdom will not be destroyed, his dominion will never end. He rescues and he saves. He performs signs and wonders in the heavens and on the earth. He has rescued Daniel from the power of the lion, so Daniel prospered during the reign of Darius and the reign of Cyrus the Persian.
Very good. There are verses in Romans and throughout other places where it tells us to uphold the law, tells us to be upright people, follow the law, follow the rules that are put upon us, whether that's work, school, just the way of the world in general. Which is important to do that. It's important to uphold that law. That's what it means to be upright people. And being upright is how we serve God in everyday life. That's how we are, representing Him as good, serving people, not only to Him, but to the world in general. But there's always a line that we have to be aware of. That line is whenever it interferes with our faith and what God tells us to do. And so, whenever it does interfere with those things, whenever the worldly law interferes with the godly law, we have to obey the godly law. We have to uphold what God taught us to do and not what the world has pushed us to do, as it so often does now. And so that story is a perfect example of that. He didn't give in to the worldly law that was pushed onto him. Instead, he recognized that it went against what he was supposed to do, and he acted accordingly. He stuck to God's teaching instead, and he prayed 3 times a day, just like he always did before that. It's exactly what we should be doing. And he did so. It never said that he was ever like guilty or, fearful of the consequences of what could happen if he was caught doing that, because there's no reason to. He trusted in the Lord. He trusted that even if he was caught doing, what it went against the ruler's commands of him, that's fine because he puts his trust in God, puts his faith in God. So no matter what, he's going to be all right, even if he has to face punishment from the worldly leaders. He's going to prosper no matter what because he did the right thing in God's eyes. That really, really speaks volumes. So many times we get, caught up in our daily lives. Things happen. It could be just the smallest little thing in our day, but it could just set us over the edge. And it makes it so difficult to put our trust and our faith in Him time and time again whenever things are still going wrong. It seems like a lot of people, they start this walk expecting this great, simple, easy walk, but it's actually better explained as a narrow, crooked path, but it's leading to a far better place than the wide, easy path that leads to eternal fire. So, yes, it's difficult, but we have to make this walk anyway. That's the right thing to do. But as we make this walk, things are going to happen. Things are going to go bad. The only way to get through that is not by trying to do it ourselves. Too many times we get caught up in trying to do everything ourselves. And by doing that, we just stress ourselves out. We get burdened, worn out, tired. We lose hope because how are we supposed to do everything in this life alone? We can't. We have to keep our trust and our faith in the Lord in order to get through that. And Daniel did a perfect job of doing that, which is incredibly impressive. He was able to hold on to that faith so well, even in that time when he was faced with these lions. They're not kittens. They're not like this tiny little thing like we usually end up with dealing nowadays. This was life and death. And 99% of the time he would have died. But because the lions recognized that he was favored by God, he was walking in the faith, he prospered. Now, I'm sure at the moment it seemed like the wicked were getting everything they wanted. A lot of times in life it seems like that. It seems like the wicked, although they do the wrong things, they get everything they want, right? It only looks like that temporarily. You just have to wait and see what God does next. And in the story, you wait and see what God does next. And we see that they were then thrown into the same den. They didn't prosper because they can't prosper because they're not following Christ. You can never prosper until you follow Christ like Daniel did. And this doesn't really apply to anyone specifically. If it does apply to you, then you'll know in secret. But I think as an overall body of Christ, I think we should all need to get serious about keeping our trust and our faith in the Lord. A lot of times, from what I understand of people, whenever they start this walk, those small little things, they add up quickly. That's what the devil wants. He wants the small little things that add up quickly, and then you just give up. It's obviously not working. It's not doing its job like we thought it was. Let's just give up and go back to our old ways. So many times that happens, we can't let that become any of us, though. We have to make sure to stand strong in our faith with the Lord, even when those things add up, even when it gets difficult, even if it's so hard to do the right thing and to trust in Him. It's so important that we do relinquish that control that we do have and just leave it to Him and trust that He's going to take care of the situation. And because He will. You have to believe that He's already done it. You have to believe that He's already made the moves to make that happen. And it'll be done. Should be it for today.
A quick one.
Yeah.
You turn this thing off.
Did a very good job. Thank you.